Hi, my name is Eileen Rodriguez. I'm a reporter for WFDD and La Noticia, covering communities of color and Latino communities.
And I'm Amy Diaz. I cover education for WFDD.
We're here for Spring Fun Drive, and we've been thinking a lot about the work that we do. Um, Amy, I know you got here a year ago. How has it been?
Yeah, it's been great. I was before a print reporter in Michigan, and I decided that I wanted to do something new. So I joined Report for America, which is a program that places journalists in newsrooms across the country. And I found myself at WFDD. I grew up listening to public radio, so it's been a really cool experience to learn how to produce stories for the radio because it's telling stories in a whole new way. And you have more experience in that than I have.
I agree. Yes, I come from podcasting, but I was excited to finally go into radio, which is a little bit different, but it's been a lot of fun. I've been covering communities of color, Latino communities, and focusing a lot on language accessibility in the community and, getting our stories across. Those communities that might have not been tuned in for a while. I constantly am in the field, and I do and produce my work in both English and Spanish. And my partnership is really actually a lot of fun. It really creates a whole new group of listeners that we didn't have before. And, you know, I've been covering issues as from the Weaver Fire, language accessibility issues and legislation as well. And I know you have been doing that as well. How has it been covering education and, school boards?
Yeah, education is a really fun beat because there's so many different parts to it. So yeah, like you mentioned, I go to school board meetings for Forsyth County, Guilford County, and then there's State Board of Education meetings that I cover as well. And there's lots of pending education legislation, so that's something I'm keeping on top of too. But then also there's just really cool local school programs and organizations and things like that. So I try to get out in the field as much as possible, whether that's in a meeting or that's like visiting a school. But then the process after that, I don't know if people kind of know what we do, but we go out in the field. I have my recorder, my camera, my notebook, all of that. And then we'll come back, write the story. We run it through with an editor.
Twice.
We do multiple edits for fact checking and for just the story and things like that. And then I'll come into the studio to record. Or if I'm at home, I record in my closet where the sound is better. And yeah, so we produce it for the radio and then we write a web story.
And we have to, keep in mind that we have to be on top of all of those things because we want to give you the most accurate, the most wonderful stories that will tell you the truth. And definitely this is thanks to public radio being publicly funded and being for the listener and created by the listener. And we're nothing but a medium, but we want to give you the most accurate, the most in-depth stories that we can have out there as to if that means being on the field or recording in the closet, which we've all had to do.
Yeah, especially during the pandemic and things like that.
Especially.
But yeah, I think public radio, it's just one of the easiest ways to access news, but you're not only getting hard news. Like you'll get the national news, you'll get local important news, breaking news, all of that. We also have these like amazing features, and it's just such a fun way to tell stories, to get to use sound in this way. Especially for me, it's still kind of a new thing, but
yeah, no, I agree. And I also think we are really diligent and we go to a two-step editing process so that we can give the most unbiased, unfiltered news stories that we can put out there so that our listeners know what's going on in their local community and what's happening all across the country. And this is all things. I mean, this is why I love WFDD. We really do focus on local first. We focus on creating stories for the people in the triad and for them to know what's happening not only with one community or one place. We are really very diligent to get everything or what we can out there.
And I love the community engagement that WFDD has too. I think that's I've worked in a few newsrooms before, and I've never seen this kind of engagement that we have, where we have Carolina Curious, where people can write in questions and we get to answer them. And there's different meetups and different youth programs that we've both volunteered at to help young journalists and things like that. So
I really love book club. It's one of my favorites. And honestly, Carolina Curious is a wonderful, feature that we have. You just produced a story not too long ago for it. What was
Yeah, that was a listener question about F schools in Forsyth County, and I kind of got to look into what the state's school performance grading system is and how that kind of actually impacts different schools differently. So schools with higher populations of economically disadvantaged students are the schools that are getting Fs, and so it's really not a good measure of teacher quality or school quality. So that was really cool to get to kind of explain this process that most people don't really know about and talk to the educators that it impacts. So I love doing that one.
I agree. I think my last Carolina Curious was about, mental health services in Spanish here in the Triad. And I wouldn't have been able to look into it unless someone, who was very curious and wanted to talk to us directly sent that question in. And all of that is thanks to, our listeners really being engaged and loving the stories that we do. And, things like what Amy reports on, education, and what I report on communities of color, Spanish-speaking communities. This is all thanks to the listener support, and that's what makes it possible.
And you can help support WFDD this spring fund drive. We'll be back on the air Wednesday, April 26th, so be sure to tune in.